All right, today we're making tax planning easy in retirement. What are the tax bombs to be aware of in retirement and just simplify them? So let me share my whiteboard. I'm Eric Maldonado, and we're looking at, can you simplify the main, one sec. Okay, all right, we're good to go. I had to change my audio setting here. Okay, so let's get to my whiteboard. Yeah, can you simplify the main tax bombs to be aware of in retirement? Let me stop sharing and share it once more to make sure I have the right one. Okay. So number one would be know your tax brackets. And let me pull up a copy of the tax brackets because that's probably the most important thing, is just to first start with an understanding of which tax bracket are you in. So this is for 2025. We'll look at married filing joint. Single is different different income amounts, same tax brackets. So there's 2, 4, 6, 7 brackets currently, and it's actually a hot topic now in um, government legislation because they're trying to pass the next big beautiful tax bill or whatever Trump calls it. But currently the rates are pretty low historically as compared to historical standards. So for someone, let's say that makes $100,000, let's say you expect to have $100,000 of income in retirement, you would be in the 22% tax bracket, $96,950 or over. And it's an average. So you wouldn't be taxed on all of your money at 22%. If you make $100,000, the average would be more like 15% because the first 23,850 is taxed at 10%. And then the next roughly 60, 70,000 is taxed at 12%. And then the next is 22. So the first big jump is 12 to 22. Once you're over roughly 97,000, then it's only 2% difference at 206,000 plus. And then the next big jump is at round numbers 400,000. So first is just understanding and being aware of which bracket are you in. And when it comes to knowing your brackets, another big aspect is the IRA versus the Roth IRA distribution. IRA distributions are taxed, whereas Roth IRA distributions are non-taxed because you contributed to the Roth IRA after taxed. So this is a big consideration here because if you are pulling income from your IRA, it's going to add to your tax bracket. So, if you take out an additional $50,000, it's going to impact your taxes. And, oh, by the way, you also want to be aware of the California, state taxes. So in California, these are the state tax rates. Before I was showing you the federal tax rates. So again, it's an average of the brackets. This middle one here is married filing joint in terms of the account. So if you're making in terms of the election of what you're filing tax as. So if you're making about $100,000, you're in the 6% tax bracket in California, and that's going to average out from 1 to 4. The highest bracket is 12.3. I believe we're the highest, if not one of the highest states. That's over, getting close to 1.5 million of income. So you'll want to take that into account as well. So maybe between the two states, if you're at 100 grand, between the two taxes, between federal and state, maybe you're around 21, 22, 23% of effective tax rate, which is the average of all the brackets, which is what you're actually paying of tax divided by, what you made for the year. So let me go back to our whiteboard here. So IRA taxed distributions versus Roth IRA. Also, in the Know Your Tax, a lot of times people are talking about Roth conversions these days, which is when you convert IRA money to Roth money. This is also a taxable event. So if you converted $100,000, that would add to your taxes and bump you up in a bracket, bump you up a bracket if you're at the tail end of a bracket. So let's say you're at $150,000. If it bumps you to 200 over 207,000, you'd be in the 24% tax bracket. So that's one of the tax items to consider. Just keeping it simplified for us. Next would be know your Social Security taxes and your Medicare charges. Another name for the Medicare charges is IRMA charges. And that is an acronym that stands for income related monthly adjustment amount. So in retirement at age 65 plus, you'll have charges for Medicare, and you'll just want to know what those are and what affects those. So it's calculated by a modified adjusted gross income, but just round numbers, if you're in the married column here and you make 212,000 or less for 2025, your Part B premium is $185 a month and Part D is zero. But let's say you do a Roth conversion or you sell a house and there's capital gains, because capital gains as well as income from a Roth conversion would be added to your IRMA charge. So let's say it bumped you up to the 200 to 212 to 266. Now your monthly payment would bump from 185 to 259, and then Part D would become $13. So, around $100 you'd pay more per month. And this is a 2-year lag, so it's based on 2023 income for 2025. So for example, if you did a Roth conversion or you sold a house and you had capital gains in 2025, this would affect your 2027 IRMA or Medicare charges. And then for Social Security, it's just good to be aware of what are the income tax thresholds. So I'll share this page here. So the max someone can make from Social Security in 2024 at full retirement age, which is about 67, you get more at age 70, but this would be the full retirement age in 2024, about 45,000. And the max you could be taxed on is 85% of that. And I'll scroll down here. So that's the max. The average that people are taking from Social Security is about $1,900 a month. That's in 2024. That's because people take Social Security at age 62, 63, and so forth, and it's reduced the sooner you take it. So for married filing joint, if your income is less than 32,000, there's no Social Security tax. And if it's between 32 and 44,000, half of it is up to half of it is taxed, and then over 44,000, 85%. So 100% of your Social Security income is not taxed. It can be up to 85%. That's actually one of the things that they're looking to pass in this new tax bill that they're trying to get done before the end of the year, because the current Tax Cut and Jobs Act bill from, I believe it was 2017, maybe 2020, is set to sunset at the end of this year. So they're trying to get it passed. And one of the items is to not have tax on any Social Security income, which would be nice for people that are currently getting Social Security. So going back to our notes here, know your Social Security taxes and Medicare IRMA charges. And then lastly, in terms of simplifying the tax items to know about in retirement, in my opinion, is number one, know your tax brackets, and then IRA versus Roth IRA contributions. And let me go back to this because there's also something to be aware of, which would be, taxable. I'll put this as taxable accounts and capital gains taxes. So you might have a brokerage account that you can also add to the equation in terms of creating your income for retirement outside of your IRAs or 401ks. And capital gains taxes, long-term capital gains taxes, so holding a position, an ETF or a mutual fund or a stock or a bond, for mostly stocks and mutual funds. Bonds the interest gets taxed, regular income tax rates when you get the income. But long-term capital gains rates are also quite favorable depending on your income. So going back to our tax brackets here. So this is for capital gains rates in 2025 long-term. So married, filing, and joint, if you happen to be under $96,700 of total income, this would include capital gains income. You're actually taxed at 0% for long-term capital gains. So let's say somehow someone's making $50,000 a year and you sell $20,000 of a stock and you held it for longer than a year. That $20,000 is actually taxed at 0%, which is really cool. But most people are probably going to be in this bracket here, which is total income of 96,700 and 60,000, and it's taxed at 15%, which is still a benefit, because if someone is, making more than 200 grand and you're going to be in the 24% tax bracket, 15% is still 9% less. So there's a benefit to having long-term capital gains taxes. So let's say you're making 200 grand and you sell $200,000 of gains in a position. That includes real estate too. So if you sold real estate and you held it for more than a year, then it would only be taxed at 15%. Now, granted, a home that you've lived in for as a permanent residence for 2 of the last 5 years, you get $500,000 of tax-free capital gains if you're married, filing, joint. That's one of the best tax benefits that we get in America. So let me go back to number 3 here. Know your RMDs, or your required minimum distribution. So these can, if you're retiring today, or if you're 75 today or later, is age 75. That's when you have to start taking a certain amount of money from your pre-tax retirement accounts. So that'd be like individual retirement accounts, IRAs, or 401ks or 403bs. And let's say you have a bunch of different IRAs. You have a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, a regular IRA. You can essentially aggregate the balance all together to calculate your required distribution, and you can take it from one of the IRAs. You don't have to take it from all of your IRAs. But if you have a 401k, an old 401k, or an old 403b, you do have to take it from each one of those 401ks. And if you're still working, then typically you can continue to work. And if you're past age 75, you don't have to take RMDs while you're actively working. It's only when you're separated from service, you're not working, and you're over age 75. This number does change in 2033 to age 75. Sorry, it's actually 73 currently, and it changes to age 75 in 2033. So here on the IRS website, retirement plan accounts, RMDs kick in at age 73. And I don't know if it talks about age 75 in this article. Let me see. So don't be distributed to the plan. 75. Doesn't talk about it in this article, but it's age 75 in 2033. And then so you can find plenty of calculators online. So this is an example of one. If you have $1 million and your age 73 at the end of the year, you would have to take out 37,735 from your pre-tax accounts, from your IRAs, and it would be lower the older you get. So if you're 77, it's actually higher. Sorry, your withdrawal factor your number of years essentially that they're projecting someone to be alive is lower. So you have to take out more money because you have less years to take the money out. So 43,000 roughly at age 77. At age, we'll just go all the way to 85, calculate, it's up to 62,000 if someone had $1 million in an account. So those are the main, what I would consider tax bombs or tax issues to think about, and to keep them simple also in retirement. One is just knowing your tax brackets and the difference between the IRA and the Roth IRA, distributions, and you can kind of play with those a little bit. Let's say you're close to the 24% tax bracket and you can choose between, you're in December, let's say, and you need another $5,000 to get you through to January, then you can take it out of the Roth IRA because it's not taxed. Or let's say you don't want to do a Roth conversion and you have $100,000 left in your 24% bracket. Well, then you can convert $100,000 before it jumps up to 32%. And that kind of helps you get a little bit of guidance on how much to convert to a Roth. And then knowing your Social Security taxes, if you're up above a certain amount, 40,000 roughly, 85% of it is going to be taxed. The rest is untaxed. And then just being aware of the IRMA charges, the Medicare charges at age 65 plus for like the Part B and the Part D. If you have capital gains or like from selling a stock or from selling a house, or if you do like a Roth conversion, that's going to add to the amount that you pay on your Medicare charges 2 years later. And then the RMDs at age 73, that's the current required minimum distribution age. It bumps up to 75 in 2033. So if you turn 75 in 2033, that would be the age that you would start taking out distributions. And there's calculators for that, and you just got to make sure to pull it out before the end of the year. Unless it's in the year that you turn 73, then it's you have until April of next year, but then you have to take 2 distributions, one in April and one by the end of the year. So typically you want to just take it in the year that you turn 73, that we don't have to double up in the next year and possibly be in a higher tax bracket. I think that's all for now. Feel free to reach out, and our website is aquilawealth.com. I'll have a link to the newsletter. You can sign up for our monthly newsletter, which talks about stuff like this. And that's all for now. Until next time.